Welcome to the Dannyola show where we don't judge, we love, we appreciate, we elevate, we motivate, and we educate. I got the one and only artist slash songwriter, a man with many, many testimonies that's going to share everything with y'all, Mr. Joe Dominguez. What's going on? How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, sir. That was the best intro I've ever had in my life. I'll tell you that.
Man, I do what I can, man. Thanking God for it all, man. So, how was 2025 treating you so far?
2025 has been really great so far. I've been really busy with music, busier than I've ever been with music. I never thought that I would be doing this amount of work sort of in the music industry. And so, yeah, shockingly, it's probably been the best year of my life, to be honest with you.
Hey, man, the things you don't expect usually is just like blows your mind, and you just look at yourself and be like, "Wow, I didn't think I would be here, but this is where we are today."
Yeah, man.
Man, that is great. So, give us a little mini introduction of yourself, like your social media, how people can find you,
Okay.
etc.
So, yeah, my name is Joe. I basically am I'm a current. I think my claim to fame at the moment is I am a detention officer.
Okay.
At a juvenile.
Okay.
That I was incarcerated in.
What?
When I was 13, 14, 15, 16.
Sheesh.
So here I am now in my 40s. And I work at the place that I was incarcerated in.
Wow.
So,
That's amazing.
Shocking, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so, and that's going great.
Mm-hmm.
It was really difficult at first when I first started working there. I thought for some reason I had romanticized it, that the kids would be like, "Oh,
yeah,
you're back, you're here to save us." And it wasn't like that. It was like, it was really tough. Of course, you got some tough young men in there. And, but yeah, that's sort of, I guess one of the most defining things in my life right now is that I work with troubled young men that were just like me and on the path that I was.
Okay.
So, and, me saying that 2025 has been, a good year for me so far, it's had a lot to do with this job.
Okay.
The song that has been recorded and that we're kind of here talking about, and it's going to be released soon. I finished writing it at this job.
Okay.
We had a church service there once. Well, they have it several times a week. They have the opportunity to have church, which is great.
Okay.
And I had told the kids in conversation that I played the guitar, and I would go around and do small gigs at like restaurants and stuff like that. And so, of course, they'd be like, you don't play. You can't play. That's cap. What's that? That's the big phrase. Oh, that's cap. That's cap. You capping. And so one day a preacher walked in with a guitar. And right away, they threw me under the bus. "Oh, Mr. Joe said he could play. Go play."
They got you.
And they got me. They threw me right out there on Front Street. And so I turned red in the face. I'm like, this is it. I got to do it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what do I play, So I played I Can Only Imagine. I think the song's by is it Mercy Me? It's an older. I can only imagine. Yeah, that one. And so I played that one, and they loved it. And the preacher was shocked. He was like, "Wow, play another one." And so I'm kind of up there, and there's a long, awkward silence. I'm like, that's kind of the only one I got, bro. And so I broke into my song. The song's called "In the Name of the Father," and the kids just loved it. By the third chorus, they were singing it.
Wow.
And I was kind of choking back tears.
Yeah.
Because that was happening. And it's just been taken off ever since. Every time the church would happen, "Hey, Mr. Joe, play your song." And I would have kids that I would see in the hallway where they would start singing my song to me. And I'm like, I would kind of look up. I'm like, what's happening? Like,
that's amazing.
This is kind of funny. These little kids are singing my song to me. So, so yeah, that's sort of what's happening right now. This song is kind of blossoming my life into something that was really unexpected. So yeah, that's very, very unexpected left turn in my life has been this job. So, as far as the social media, I have a couple of accounts. I'm under Joe Dominguez, which is like my personal one.
Okay.
And my business Facebook page.
Okay.
So the one I was referring to was Facebook. That was my personal account, just Joe Dominguez. But the business Facebook page has been under Joe Possum.
Okay.
Which is my sort of stage name.
Okay.
It was a so
please give me the story behind that. I need it.
So my I had a nickname when I was younger, when I was a kid. I was always the kid, the sibling that was getting whooped.
Okay.
I was always the guy that would break the neighbor's window with a rock, or something like this, something mischievous like this. Mark on their mailbox with a Sharpie, something like this. I'd find a random bottle on the ground, I'd break it in the street.
Okay.
Something like this. It's really, really mischievous kid. And so I got a lot of whoopings. And so
I can relate.
I started doing this thing where I would flop. They call it in basketball, you're flopping.
Yeah.
But I would, and I would play dead. Like, I would go silent and hold my breath in the middle of this beatdown.
Okay.
And I remember it worked like twice. And then after that, the third time that it happened, my dad stopped. And where he would stop and like pick me up and be like, "Are you okay?" He just wham came through with another one and woke me up. And
he got you.
And he called me. He's like, "You playing possum, boy? You playing possum? I ain't going for it with them crocodile tears."
Okay.
And so my siblings got a kick out of it, and they started calling me Joe Possum. Hey, Joe Possum.
Okay.
And it just kind of stuck. And so several years back, I'd say about 4 or 5 years now, I started doing gigs and going out to like restaurants and maybe small little patio bars and stuff like that, and doing cover songs and things like that. No really original stuff. And and so the name Joe Dominguez is very common. Yeah. Joe's very common. It's used in popular culture where, they say, well, just Joe Blow walking down the street or something like this, Joe the Plumber, Joe Schmo. So it's very common. So I was like, I got to add a little edge to my name.
Okay.
And so I brought out the Joe Possum. But, however, I do have to drop a little knowledge here that I'm going to I have to change the name because you saw the reaction that you got from it.
Yeah.
By hearing it. And I'm kind of going more into the church and spiritual space.
Okay. Okay.
I grew up in church, despite being a very troubled young man. There was one thing that was going to happen when you were in my house. One was you were going to respect your elders.
Okay.
And two was on Sunday you were going to go to church. And so that's been a constant throughout my life. And God has always been almost like, no matter what I was doing or what I was going through, it was like a little grain of sand. That was maybe like in your shoe. I don't want to put him like in the shoe, but it was like in my mind.
Okay.
It was a grain of sand in my mind where you always knew that it was like this little small thing that you were aware that was alive in your life and that you were kind of trying to push it down for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And silence it because so you could be the master of your own life and you want to do what you want to do when you want to do it and you don't want to live by any parameters or whatever. And so I'm kind of going back into that realm. These original songs that have come out of a sort of tumultuous period in my life, they're very spiritual in nature. Okay. And so we're changing the Joe Possum. I did a sort of a social media question of like, hey guys, I got to drop this name going into the next music space in my life. Yeah. Do you guys have any ideas? And we got a lot of them. Joe Messina. Sounds good. Sounds very
Joe Messina.
Joe Messina. I don't know. It sounds good. And we got a lot of funny ones. Joe Santana, so on and so forth. But the best one came from Mr. Roberts, my coworker there at the facility I work at. He was like, he's funny. Mr. Roberts is really, really funny. And he's like, you trying to do all this spiritual stuff. Why don't you just call yourself Lazarus and get it over with? And I was like, and then we both looked at each other like, well, yeah. And so we're dropping the possum. It's going to be Joe Lazarus Dominguez.
Okay.
And so we had a graphic designer that I work with. This young man named Dannyola, who's a really great artist. He draws with the kids. He's another detention officer. And he's created all of these beautiful graphics that I'm going to be using on the website.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, here shortly we'll be We're going to be rolling that out on the website. I'll change it across all platforms. So eventually, if you guys want to look it up when this does come out, it's going to be Joe Lazarus Dominguez, just to sort of, I think, move into a more spiritual space. I think the possum was funny.
Yeah,
it's a funny story.
Yeah,
but hopefully this song does great, and we'll be playing at some really big churches.
It will. Amen to that.
Yeah, thank you. And so I don't want to really be, I don't really want to be telling that story at a really big church, even though they would. I'd probably tell it anyway.
Yeah,
I used to be Joe Possum, but we did this as the story of Lazarus being resurrected, brought back from the dead, and I thought that was very appropriate for me because, this song came out of a really terrible place, and so it was very appropriate, I think. So I'm looking forward to making that change.
Yeah, and then I think it'll be very big that you do say it in church so they can know where you came from to where you are now. You know what I'm saying?
I
like
agree.
you said, with the whole Lazarus coming back, from the old you to the new you. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely amazing. So
Yes, sir.
What inspired you to get into the music industry?
When I was younger, my dad was a really big music fan, really big music head, and again, going back to always being in trouble, I'd be suspended from school for some reason. And back in the day, before movies were on the internet, you'd have to go to Blockbuster Video.
Okay, yeah.
How old are you, sir? Let me ask you this before I go too far.
No, I remember Blockbuster.
Okay,
I remember 30s. You good? I still remember.
I have to ask that. Blockbuster Video. For the audience, Blockbuster Video, Hollywood Video was a place that you have to go and physically rent a movie to take home and watch. You couldn't
no red box.
There was no red box. It was a whole store red box. So, yeah, my dad would bring home movies and concerts, live and in concert. And the first sort of band that I fell in love with was a band called Pink Floyd.
Okay.
Which was a very sort of psychedelic rock band. And from that point, I think I saw it when I was like 12 or 13, and I was in trouble, suspended, and he just like watched movies, I guess, and he would go to work and so I remember watching that thing, like 100 times. And I was hooked. The guy that plays on that guitar for that band, his name's David Gilmour. And I just fell in love with it. And I always had a dream in the back of my head that I want to do that as a kid. When people would say, what do you want to do when you get older? I would say, I want to play the guitar.
Yeah.
And so, more and more my dad saw that my love for it, and he eventually bought me an acoustic guitar. And he bought the acoustic, but nobody in my family is musical really in the sense of playing instruments.
Okay.
So maybe I took one lesson. I didn't really learn how to tune the thing. The guitar has to be tuned, like most instruments. If they don't, it's not easy to listen to. Okay. It sounds like a bunch of horns playing. You're like, fingers on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
And so I came home, I got upset, and in my temper one day, I wouldn't tune it, and I just kind of threw it in the closet and was like, that's over with. And so, it wouldn't happen for quite some time. I actually would end up learn another sort of crazy thing in my life was I learned how to play the guitar in prison. Yeah.
Interesting.
I learned how to play the guitar in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, so we probably have to segue into that, right?
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So, I mentioned several times that I was in trouble and I was always doing something bad, and eventually, after going to juvenile, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, finally, I did the big one. I got in a fight and I hurt a kid really bad.
Okay.
I hit him with sort of a pipe kind of thing, and I messed him up, and they charged me with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
Oh, wow.
And so that was my junior year going into my senior year. And so the courts allowed me to finish my senior year. And then after that, I had to go and sign for almost 5 years in prison in TDC.
Okay.
And so I went and did that, which was crazy. And we'll go a little deeper into that, but going into the guitar, I was in there for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And I get a letter out of nowhere that they had opened up this Christian facility in Sugar Land, Texas.
Okay.
Which is not too far from, I'm from Rosenberg. And so they asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. At the time, I was about 5 hours away from my family. I was way down south of San Antonio.
Okay.
It was a unit called the Briscoe unit.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Big unit down there. And so I accepted. I sent the letter back. I kind of thought I was being scammed or something. I don't know. I'm in prison. I just got a piece of mail, and I'm like, okay, you guys are you're gonna take me home, to a Christian facility, and I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. And so, they one day in the middle of the night, I get a knock on my cell door, and you're on the chain, which is, in English, it's means you're catching the bus.
Catching the bus, yeah.
Catching the bus. And so I got on the chain, packed my stuff with other prisoners, and you go through traveling is bad in general sometimes on a bus, but traveling on a prison bus is one of the most uncomfortable things you experience in your life. And you travel, and it's not like one shot. You just go straight there. You stop at a unit, and you'll spend the night there, or maybe the weekend. And one of the units we stopped at was called like McConnell. These are like super max prisons.
I've heard of McConnell.
And then on the way back, I got stuck at Darrington.
Oh, I heard Darrington
for a weekend. And you're just there, and Darrington is a really old prison
out there in Rocheron.
Yeah. And it's like it's a max. You have some really, really heavy hitter type people there. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to die or something bad's going to happen going through these supermaxes, but you're kind of segregated because you're in transit. But anyway, I make it to this prison in Sugar Land called the Carol Vance unit.
Okay.
And so I'm there. It's a very small unit, and it's very minimum custody, trustee status, people who haven't been in trouble. And the Carol Vance unit has allowed for a program called the IFI program, which is called the Interchange Freedom Initiative program, where they had outside preachers come in and they created the scheduling for a select amount of prisoners.
Okay.
And you would have church all day, every day. It was a requirement. You had to constantly go to these counseling classes, and preachers would come in. But the crazy thing about this prison was they actually had a band in there. They had full drums and the whole nine. And one of the preachers that went in to play was a killer on the electric guitar.
Okay.
He was stunning. And so it reminded me of this Pink Floyd guy that I saw when I was a kid. And this guy's name was Larry Campanello. And so I remember watching him play. I was in church one day, and they were playing Amazing Grace. And this guy is just killing it. He's like Eddie Van Halen or one of these old guitar legends. And I'm too scared to talk to him. So I talked to another guy, a prisoner, who's playing acoustic guitar. And he's an old man. And I asked him, hey, man, can you teach me to play guitar? And he's a really rough old man. And he says, oh, you youngsters just want to play Metallica, and then I never see you again. And I was like, I don't even like Metallica.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he was like, if you let me teach you music theory, I'll teach you how to play the guitar. And so I was like, I'm terrible at math, but okay. And so he started, bring a pen and paper, and he starts teaching me chord progressions, chord structures, modal progressions, how to read music. Major pentatonics, minor pentatonics, the difference between being flat and being sharp. And I would run through these sort of sequences on paper. Did that for a couple of months. Dang. And and then I'd go for church and watch them play and everything like that. And afterwards he'd say, well, what chord progression was I playing? Well, if I was in the key of G, what's the relative minor in this chord progression? If I wanted to play lead guitar over it, what pentatonic would I use? But if I wanted to sound like this, what's the diatonic scale I would use? And so I would basically sight read what they were doing and read it back to him. So anyway, long story long, he one day I was, up there watching them play, and they were rehearsing, and he was like, come up, and took the guitar off and gave it to me and was like, play a C chord, play a G chord. And I had been studying so much, I knew what it was. And so like a fish to water, it just happened.
It was natural.
And I just started doing it. And and so I came out of prison. I'm kind of speeding through that process, but I'll really quickly, that unit, they had the band was called the Winds of Change, and they would go out every other Sunday. They would leave under armed guard in a bus. They would load up all the equipment, and they'd go out and play at different churches.
Wow.
And so that guy who taught me how to play, the old man, he went home, and then so I just kind of took his place.
Okay.
And so not too long after arriving at that unit, I was traveling around Houston playing the guitar. And I had only been playing really for like 90 days at that point.
That's wild.
And I'm going out and I'm playing in front of these big churches. One of the biggest ones we played was at it's called Sugarland First Baptist on 59. It's a really, really big church. And there I am in my prison uniform. And, you know, we're there. We're under armed guard, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We're jamming. And so I got out of, I left prison knowing how to play the guitar. That's how I learned how to play. So here I am now in my 40s. Yeah, that little guitar that my dad, that I had first discovered when I was in trouble, being suspended from school, and my dad brought this tape home from Blockbuster. That me visualizing and loving that, it spiraled its way all the way through my life. Now as an older man, I'm still sort of intertwined and in love with the guitar. So that's how the music kind of started and developed and kind of kept going through my life. So
nah, that is a great story for real. Like, dang, like sheesh, shoot, almost brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah, no, I actually have a picture. So this is a picture that was taken of me and the drummer, in our prison whites, playing the guitar here, and I'll show the
show it.
Show the audience there.
Yeah,
you guys can see it.
Yep.
I was much younger back then.
So you all? Oh, okay. I see it? Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's the drummer there. This guy was a really, really great drummer. But that was me when I was 20. I want to say around 22 at that point.
Okay.
I had been incarcerated for a little over 3 years.
Okay.
So yeah. And so oddly enough, really quickly, that electric guitar that I have in my hand right here, the red one, the preacher that would come in and play with this group, named Larry, that was his electric guitar that he allowed me to play.
Wow.
Many years later, when you fast forward, when I got out, I met up with him, and he actually gifted me this guitar.
Wow.
So the guitar that's played on this song, the electric guitar, is the guitar that I'm holding in my hand here when I'm in prison as a 20-year-old.
That's legendary.
So that guitar is still in my possession. It's like one of my most prized possessions, you know? So, yeah. So that's how I ended up sort of doing music. It's just been kind of slowly spiraling through my life. And I think is like a godlike way. That story, I think, is if I had heard somebody else tell that story, I would think that's one of the coolest stories I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And so you learned how to play the guitar in prison.
Yeah.
And so not only that, the guitar that I was playing in prison is the one that I have in my possession, and is the one that you're going to hear on this album. So
that is, man, look, shoot, just released the album right now.
I know, right? I know. I'm excited to hear it.
Okay, so going back to your juvenile days, what was the thought process transitioning in and out of the juvenile facility each time that you went?
I think really, I was so young and ignorant. Unfortunately, I never really had a thought process. It was I was just a very impulsive young man.
Okay.
My parents divorced at a very young age. My mother and my stepmother had a very contentious relationship.
Okay.
It was like the term cats and dogs doesn't do it justice. And so mom would try to get at stepmom. Stepmom would kind of take that out on me some.
Okay.
And then her and I, my relationship with her turned into like napalm. We were beyond cats and dogs. We were lions and tigers. And that would kind of propel me to maybe go to school the next day and act out.
Okay.
We would have an episode at night or in the morning, and I would go to school and maybe pick a fight or bully somebody or, cuss a teacher out or something like that. And so it was just, there was never really a mindset. I didn't really develop that until I got older, until I was incarcerated.
Okay.
And then even that desire to sort of analyze behavior would fade over time, even as I got out of the penitentiary and as an adult. And it wasn't until certain things happened to where God allowed me to, live my own life, my own way.
Okay.
And then you would get into this huge wreck like in your life, and then you would be forced to sort of develop a mindset to even have one. And so, but going in and out in juvenile, it was really more along the lines of trying to get out of trouble. It wasn't so much.
Okay.
It wasn't so much trying to fix the trouble. It was just trying to get out of that. That's a great term we just coined.
Yeah.
So it wasn't trying to fix the trouble. It was trying to get out of it immediately. So it was like I'm incarcerated at 13. You know, I took my parents' car and wrecked it. You know, like an idiot teenager would do. I was 13. I couldn't even drive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my dad had this big, long Oldsmobile 88, you know, long Cadillac boat. I could barely see over the wheel. And so I got incarcerated for that. And then, you know, the next time it would be, and kind of being on probation is a difficult thing because for something that you would just kind of get in trouble at school with, say you get in a fight at school, they send you home, suspend you. But once you get on probation, you just violated your probation by fighting. Yeah. So now you're going back in the juvenile.
Yeah. And
so then you get out. And you're like, well, I'm going to do better. And then like a friend says, hey, man, we got some smoke over here. Do you want to smoke? And so you're like, yeah, that's cool, you know. But as soon as you smoke, well, now you're dirty. You know. And so it kind of turned into this revolving door with me because I would do just the smallest, you know, ignorant thing. I wouldn't say it was too small. I don't want to minimize it. But, you know, you're smoking, you're using drugs at 13, 14, 15, and then fighting and then trying to joyride in your parents' car. And they weren't too severe, but it was just a absent-mindedness. And I would think that's, if I could tell these youngsters nowadays, I know we'll get into that later, but you really can set yourself behind as an adult because of what you did as a kid. Yeah. But I think the problem is youth is blinding, and you can't see sort of 10 minutes in front of you, much less listen to an adult saying, you need to think about 10 years from now. Like 10 years is like, what? So 10 years is like saying, oh, we'll be on Mars at that time or something like that. So you just can't fathom it. But the mindset was more of just to survive the trouble and get out of the trouble more than fix it. So it was very much the mind of an adolescent boy, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was life like after being released from prison?
It was really good. It was really good initially, you know. Unfortunately, my life is not all bad, so I don't want to. But unfortunately, I left God back at prison. You know, I took the opportunity. I went into this program and really got sort of, you get soaked in church and in God, and you're just full of prayer and reading the Bible and going and playing in front of churches and stuff. You know, excuse me, I got out and I started waiting tables and kind of bartending, and you just kind of fall into the life of sort of chasing women. And, and now I was never of age to drink before, and now I get out and I'm of age. I can just walk in and go sit down. I didn't know what it was like to go to a bar. Like, hey, we're going to go get drinks. I didn't know what that was like. So like, we're just going to go in there and sit and drink? Like, yeah. Like, oh, wow. I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of became in that restaurant life where like, oh, that's what we do. We get off work and we just go to the bar and we just drink until they close. And then we sleep all day and sort of do the same thing the next day. And then we even do it on our off days. You know, when we're off on a Saturday or Sunday, we're like, let's go get crawfish. Yeah. Let's go drink on the patio. And so, you know, it just turned into like this, oh man, I'm back, you know, and you know, going full force, leaving God in prison, leaving God out of my life and just sort of forgetting about it. And things were going okay in a sense that nothing too terrible was happening. I was just kind of living life, and I didn't really have a goal. It was just, I think when you get out, the goal is like, don't go back. Yeah. And the goal is like, oh, get a job, get a girlfriend, get a little bit of money. We didn't really have access to the internet at the time. You didn't have so many influencers, motivational influencers that are talking to you about mindset and about setting goals and about thinking about your future and about planting seeds of greatness now and watering them and seeing, you know, in 5, 10 years or even 2 years, you can see your whole life turn around. Yeah. And we have so many great things now at our fingertips of seeing, like, for me, I like to listen to like Tony Robbins. Okay. I love David Goggins, the Navy SEAL crazy guy.
Yeah, my homeboy listen to David Goggins.
And, you know, to hear these guys, these greats, talking about pushing yourself and, you know, holding yourself accountable and being goal driven and that kind of stuff was the furthest thing from me. I didn't really know much about that or have access to it, and just kind of was living day to day and kind of partying and I don't know, hoping for the best. Wasn't really thinking about the future, but life was good. I actually moved to New York City for almost 3 years. When I was out, I had a friend, a good friend, even to this day. He was a guy from high school who went to school for acting.
Okay,
he was a drama, kind of a drama major, and he went to school in North Carolina. And he got out. He went to the big city of New York to try and chase his dreams. His name's Jeff Cusimano. Shout out Jeff. And I was at home one day. I had finished working, and I was kind of in the backyard and just drinking, I guess, not really doing much. And the phone rings like at, I don't know, 12:30 at night. And I'm at my parents' house at the time, and I'm like, I'll grab the phone. And it's Jeff, who had heard in New York, somehow somebody talked to him on the phone that I had gotten out. Okay. So he calls my childhood home phone years later after I'd gotten out. And so we talk, and he's like, man, you should come to New York. And that's what I did. I had a girlfriend at the time, and it kind of broke her heart. We were doing the long distance thing, but I sold the little jalopy car that I had, and I moved to New York. I took my guitar, and moved up there for a couple of years. So that was quite an experience. I just bartended up there, but New York is a really expensive city.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so I was we paid almost $2,000 a month for an apartment. That's maybe about 3 times the size of this room.
Wow.
Yeah, very small. And so. Sheesh. And so we worked in order to make that money. We worked almost 7 days a week, both of us. Dang. And so when I was up there, it just turned into a couple of years of just nonstop waiting tables and bartending. And, after a while, my girlfriend at the time, who would end up later on being my wife, we just, she was like, you need to come home. It's not working out. And I was like, yeah, it's not working out either. Yeah. So I came back. And so, and eventually I would kind of evolve and want to get out of the restaurant business, which I did. And I ended up getting into oil and gas, and I ended up working offshore. Okay. And the young lady that I was talking about, my girlfriend at the time, who was actually kind of a high school sweetheart, we ended up getting married. So we stayed together. She was with me for about 13 years after I got out. Yeah, she really held it down.
Sheesh.
And so, we ended up getting married. But yeah, so life after prison was really good. She and I kind of built a great life for ourselves. So yeah, that was that. Okay. That's kind of how life was after prison. So yeah.
Okay. So was there ever a time where you just lost faith in God due to your circumstances? I know you said when you left prison you just threw it out the door, but was there ever a time where you just like other than that?
Yeah, kind of. It kind of that segues perfectly into the wife that I had, or ex-wife. I said we were together for 12 or 13 years. We ended up getting a divorce about 5 years ago. Wow. It was just a situation to where the stresses and rigors of life kind of turned us into roommates, and I wanted to be out there in them streets. I wanted to be out there in them streets. And it was a classic example of like a guy not knowing what he had. We had the house, we had the dogs, we had the cars, we had the decent jobs. But, just like a foolish man-child, which is essentially what I called myself during that period of my life, when God was kind of, in the back seat. Going out with the boys was more important than my home, was more important than being home. Watching the Real Housewives of Atlanta with her on a Saturday night. That was her idea of a good time. And not all the time, but she was more of a wanting to be home kind of woman thing, which is great. I know. I realize now in hindsight, you're like, that's what you want. Yeah, you want somebody who wants to be at home, not the opposite of. You don't want a woman that's out in the street.
In the streets.
She's for the streets. You know what I mean? She for them streets, and she wasn't, and I was, and it didn't work out. And it was one of the most tragic.
This is whining, is this entertaining?
she was a lifelong friend. We knew each other in high school, and and we were just the best of friends. But I just, for the life of me, being a stupid man or man child, I call myself at the time, I just couldn't see the forest from the trees. I couldn't. You're not thinking about the future.
Yeah.
You know, again, you get short sighted in life, and you're not really thinking about. You know, I'm gonna get older and maybe I might not be able to find someone like this again. You know, so you know it went. You know, we ended up divorcing, and it was the crazy thing about divorce is like, because you hear adults when I was young, you'd hear adults say, "Oh, so and so divorced," and as a kid, you're like, "Oh, they divorced. They broke up. They broke up."
Yeah.
Right. But when you're actually in it, for me, I called it the death of three people. It was the death of the past you, the present you, and the future that you had fantasized that would happen. You know, my biggest regret was with her is I didn't have any kids with her, so I don't have any children. So I'm 43 years old, and anyway, and so that was one of the most powerful moments in my life where I lost all this time with her, and then I'm going to lose her now, and then I'm going to lose this life that I had fantasized about. I fantasized raising a family with her and stuff like that. So it was the death of the largest magnitude for me. And but going back to your question, had I ever lost faith in God, during that time after that, you know, I lost the house. We sold everything, and she went on and ended up with another guy. And somebody I knew, and which was super terrible. It used to be back in the day when somebody got a divorce or broke up, they just moved to another side of town.
Yeah.
And you just wouldn't have to see them. But now with social media, you can't get away from them.
Yeah, they right there.
It's baked in.
Right there.
Your friends are baked in.
Yep.
And you try to go through and delete all the friends that they know, but somehow you're getting ready for work the next day and you kind of look at your phone and somebody you forgot posts a picture of her with her new man, and you're like, and it sends you back down the rabbit hole. You know? And you tumble down mentally. And my life got so dark at that point. And this is really hard to share, but she ends up having a baby with this guy. I don't know if there's a sound effect for that, but like a wah, wah, wah.
Actually, there is.
Is there?
Man.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
All
Man.
right.
I don't know if I can find it. Hold on.
Oh, that was it. That was it.
Yeah. Oh man.
And that was just the largest, the hardest sort of wrecking ball to my spirit. I gave up on life, you know. I was like, I'm going to be this childless man. And then another crazy thing that came along with it was that I realized all my friends were her friends, you know, because I was in prison before.
Yeah.
And so they were kind of friends. They never lost contact with each other. And they were they kind of became my friends, you know, just by me being with her. And so lost all the friends, lost the girl, you know, it was this really, but talking about if I ever lost faith in God, that was the darkest time of my life, you know, because, you know, the worst thing about it is that you realize you did it yourself.
Yeah.
I detonated that bomb myself. I literally sat in my life and pressed the button and started that explosion, that chain reaction. You ever seen one of those buildings that they do demolition on? And you see this boom, 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 boom. And it was just and then you see the big building fall. Yeah. But it was these small series of explosions that you were setting off yourself. And then all of a sudden it's this massive collapse. And that was the time that I lost all my faith in God. I remember, and I had this job at the time in the oil and gas industry that I absolutely hated. I don't know if you've ever had a job that you hated. Have you? No. Good for you. This job was the worst thing one of the worst things that ever happened to me. And I was a manager, and I realized once I became I was a location manager over several locations. And when you become a manager, you want to be a manager when you're younger. And and I realized once I actually got the job title that I was only jealous of the pay and the title and the respect. But when I actually got into it and you realize the responsibility and that your life is not only your own. Yeah. You're not only responsible for what you do, you're responsible for the other 15 people inside of here. And over there at that location too. And So I was trying to keep this job while all this stuff was going on in my life, and music was the farthest thing away from my mind. I had let it all go. I wasn't playing really, and every now and then I would pick up the guitar. Every now and then for like maybe 5 minutes, and I was just so entrenched in misery and like darkness. You know, I would kind of go home and sort of drink by myself in the backyard and just like stare at the ground and just space out on how much I hated my existence and what a terrible existence it had become. And the worst thing again is knowing that you exploded this building on your own. And yeah, so that was the biggest time that I had lost faith in God. And I remember going to work, and Daniel, it was so bad to where it could be a nice day outside like it is today. And I would kind of look up and snarl my lip, God, and be like, that's great. You have a nice day for everybody. Like, but it doesn't mean anything because my life is terrible. I was so bad. I disliked the weather. I was so depressed, and I couldn't even take good weather out.
That's wild.
That's deep, man.
It is.
And there was this one time, Daniel, I got to tell you about, where I would go take a lunch break around this sort of cul-de-sac. You could kind of go through a driveway and kind of park behind a building where trees were, and you could, just sleep. I would take an hour of sleep, and I would go back there and sometimes I would get out and walk and sit on this little stoop. It looked like it was kind of abandoned. Nobody had been there for a long time. Maybe you'd see the occasional trash or beer can, but this was like in a little abandoned area. I'd go kind of take a lunch break. And I remember sitting on that stoop, and it was a nice day, kind of telling God that I'd hated my existence. And I wish that he would have never made me. And I was getting really close, Daniel, to... I was toying with the idea kind of suicide ideation. Wow. I hated my life so bad. Wow. And I remember thinking, you're not really here. We're just an accident. We're just an accident. We evolved out of bacteria. And you're not really here. And I remember hearing this buzz by my ear. And I turned around. And it was the biggest dragonfly I had ever seen in my life that was on this sort of utility pole that I was sitting next to on the stoop. And it was just staring at me. And I was like, I didn't move. And I was like, whatever. I thought that God had sent the dragonfly. And so, I mean, it's kind of a silly story, but I gave up on God, but I would always kind of like that grain of sand I talked about. I would peel and throw every idea of God away and try and hate the idea that he existed or whatever. But no matter what, like that little dragonfly, there was this little grain of sand in the back of my head that was like, you don't believe that.
Yep.
You know I'm here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was the time that I had given up on God. I mean, I know that was a really lengthy response, but yeah.
Nah, you good, man. The more the merrier. I mean, this platform is for people to, be educated and also to grow and also learn, from different people's experiences as well. So that they can, you know what, I can relate to that. And okay, this is how he did it. Maybe I can try that same pathway or try to, learn from what he did as well, So, man, that's definitely a great story all around. So
I appreciate it.
You got the music thing going on. You got work going on. So what does self-care look like to you? How do you unwind and decompress?
I'm not the best at doing that.
I can relate. Trust me.
Usually I'm kind of a tense guy. But I have to say that even though I'm not in as great shape as you are, I go to the gym and I go to the gym, several times a week, and I really have found that in my later years in life that, that's the place for me. When the hardest thing about going to the gym is actually getting there.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like you'll make so many excuses.
Man, you're preaching.
And it's the hardest thing is getting there. And then, but once you get going, and I find there is this thing where you kind of warm up a little bit, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm strong. And then I start, then you get into it, and I realize, oh, this is my place. This is where I need to be. Not in like bars, not not chasing women or doing anything crazy like that. It's like, if you need something to do, go to the gym, or go to church, And that's really, I get so much edification now from going to the gym or going to church. I find that in those places I get to sort of pray. And for me, God is not, at that moment, he's not far from me. It's not some figment of my imagination where this big being of light lives a trillion light years away from me. In those moments, that grain of sand in my head becomes a little bit bigger, and it's the size of maybe a tennis ball. And then I'm like really able to sort of, I guess, pray like God is within me. And those are the moments where I'm able to decompress, and I leave there, church or the gym, and I'm like, okay, everything's okay. I can handle the stresses and rigors of life. I'm ready for the week, or I'm ready, for tomorrow, So,
hey, that's amazing. That's amazing. And and that's what I also use the gym for, to, reset, recharge. Even church on Sundays is to reset. It's the beginning of the week. It's the start of the week. Is, a new mindset, a new game plan, to just go ahead and just make something happen, for yourself, just to make every opportunity, every day count, make the day count regardless. So, man, that's definitely inspiring. But
yes, sir.
Yeah, that gym is definitely top tier. I ain't gonna lie.
For sure. Like I said, the hardest thing is getting there.
Yes.
Once you get there, you're good.
That's when you motivated.
Yeah.
So your new song is coming out soon. What inspired that song? Like, what sparked the idea of that song?
Yeah. I think that, we just talked about, sort of the dark period that I went through after, I sort of imploded or exploded my life. The song was written, like every line in the song, which I'll play a little bit later, was something that I lived through. There's the first line of the song is, I've been asking myself why I should try, and I've been asking myself in my dreams. There was a part where I told you that I gave up on God, and I would wake up and I would try to maybe have a good day, and then something would happen at work, and I would lose my temper or something like this. And I'm like, I would throw papers up in the air and be like, I don't even want to try.
Yeah.
And then I remember I would have a dream that I was somewhere walking, and I was hearing that in my dream. I don't even know why I try. Like it was echoing even in my non-reality. That attitude was echoing. And so the first line of the song is, I've been asking myself why I should try. I've been asking myself in my dreams. Am I really here for something more? Or do you even see me when I pray? And I live that. And that to answer the question, that this song is literally a map of that time in my life, and every line was lived. Every line was inspired by a dark moment, or there's a line in the song too where I say, I've been telling myself, I don't think I'm going to make it another year, but on my way home, the sun broke free from the clouds, and I'll just sit here with my head bowed as I pray. And so, not all of it was inspired. There was a time I was coming home from work, and I would always look for a small sign of God, just like with the dragonfly. Yeah. There's these hawks that are around here in South Texas, and when I always look at them, they're on power lines and whatever. You'll see them flying around fields. I think it's like it's called the American red-tailed hawk or something like that. But I always look for them and they're giant. They're about this big. They're like a small monkey on a power line. And I'm like, people just pass by. They don't even notice. Like, it's a hawk up there. And so that particular day, I was coming home I wrote that line. I was coming home from work. And it was like the dragonfly thing. I was kind of upset, and it was a cloudy day. And I looked over, and these birds that I had been kind of secretly looking at for like the last 5 years of my life, that was like, wow, is nobody else seeing this? There's hawks around here. And I looked over, and there was a hawk on a stop sign looking at me. And I was like, it can't be you. That's not
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
God is not a dragonfly. He's
Yeah.
not a hawk. It's a figment of my imagination. And then so I started, but just like a little kid, I'm always trying to look for a reason that my creator is actually interacting with me. And I'm not just walking alone down here by myself. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah.
But and so that particular line I write, you know, on the way home, the sun broke free from the clouds. I remember dismissing that hawk and being like, "You're crazy, bro. God's not a hawk. He's not a dragonfly. It's an ugly day outside, you know." And then I'm like, in my internal dialogue is like, "You don't even like good days outside. I mean, like nice weather, you know. So what do you care?" I remember stopping in traffic, and it was like the wind had blown in and blew all the clouds out of the sky, and the sun just kind of glimmered out, and I was like. I had a moment of like, all right, you need to snap out of it, dude. Like this is getting really bad. Maybe you go to the gym today and try and play music when you get home. And I wrote that line, you know, on the way home, the sun broke free from the clouds. I wrote it on a little dry erase board. And so, yeah, this song was inspired by real life events all the way down to, you know, seeing dragonflies, hawks, and the clouds clearing out of the sky for the sun to shine through. So, yeah.
Man, that is amazing. That is awesome, man.
Yeah, it's very, very real, very real song. So,
man, shoot, man, y'all gonna be able to hear the song soon.
Yeah, it's coming, bro. I'm excited. My hands are. That's how I can tell. Is my hands start to sweat.
Show. Yeah, all right, we got you. So, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell a young Joe to keep your moral compass intact. You know, like when you're young, you know, it's easy to maybe take something that doesn't belong to you, or when nobody's looking, you do this. You're supposed to be doing X and you do Y. You know, your parents, you know, you're not supposed to sneak out of the house and you go see a girl. You know, you're not supposed to take the car. You're not supposed to dabble with the weed. You're not supposed to drink. You know, you're not of age. And I think what I would tell myself, and I realize this now, as an older man, is that that stuff starts to get embedded in you. Your willingness to break rules and your willingness to, you know, veer off of what you know is right. And if I could sort of reappear in a portal in front of myself as a young kid, I would say, do the right things. You know, I know that it's so tempting to, you know, go around and go make out with your girlfriend, but you know you're 14. You know you shouldn't be doing that. Or, you know, or your parents are having a barbecue and you go and try and sip the beer. Yeah, you know, you start to develop a appetite for doing wrong, and I developed that at a very, very young age. And I always took it as the adults just didn't want you to have fun or something like that. You know, my parents would tell me no to going out as a teenager, and I would sneak out or something like this. And it was just like always doing the wrong thing as opposed to, you know, developing a moral compass and having a standard for yourself. And you say, I don't go past this. I don't cross these lines. If it comes to telling the truth, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm sorry. You know, there's a way to tell the truth without smashing somebody's feelings or something like that. But I think that's what I would say to my younger self is keep your moral compass intact. Stay in church. Do positive. And something I really struggle with is my my inner self-talk being negative. And that's what I would say too is like learn to love yourself, learn to speak highly of yourself, learn to, you know, if you aren't successful at lifting a weight or playing this guitar or, you know, getting a job at a young age or whatever. So many times when I was young, I would mentally give up and I would quit because it got hard. And so that's another thing I would tell myself, my younger self, is like, don't quit. don't give up. Keep your moral compass intact and don't quit. And don't become an enemy of yourself, which is your internal dialogue. And I find that so important for me these days because I have a tendency to be my harshest critic.
Yeah.
I think maybe we all are.
Yeah.
You know? And especially with social media, it's easy to look at my other friends' life and stuff and other people that are doing great, even though we know that those are just the, what do you call them, the reels. It's just what do you call it? They're just showing you the greatest hits. They're not showing you all the stuff that it took to get there. I saw one the other day where a guy was, he showed a picture of his friend who was in a Lamborghini in Miami. And he was like, this guy was on a podcast. And he was like, this is my picture of my friend in a Lamborghini in Miami. He's got 13 warrants in New York City. And he's broke, and that Lamborghini is actually not his. His dad company rented it. You know what I mean? But it was a great example of how, like, you can't take it on its face value and use it to judge yourself with of how great or not great that you're doing. It's the only person that you should be judging yourself is like up against yourself and who you were yesterday. And so, that's what I would tell myself. Keep your moral compass. Don't be a quitter, and be nice to yourself, man. You know
that part.
Be nice to yourself.
That last part. Be nice to yourself
and have patience with yourself.
Yes.
If I had known all this would transpire in my life and me playing music and that I would make it through prison and everything like that, then perhaps I would have been a little more patient. Be like, just breathe, go to the gym, go to church, keep your moral compass intact, don't quit, don't give up, and just make it through. You'll be fine. Be patient. So that's what I would tell my younger self. Would he listen? I don't know. I would hope he would.
You know, because when you're younger, you got that that thing of the I know phase. Like, that's what I call it. Like the spirit of I know, or I got it. You know what I'm saying? I got it. I know. I got it. Or you think that there's enough time, like you said before. Yeah. Just wait your time. But a week sounds so far. A year sounds very far. Yeah. But time waits for nobody, and it happens just like that. You know, so I definitely get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, I agree. I had that really bad. The I know. I know somebody now. I know somebody now. I have a friend, and this young lady, I have to mention her too. This lady that I have in my life, her name is Sonia. She's a great friend. And when I was going through all this tumultuous time in my life, oddly enough, her mother had passed away right about the time that I got my divorce. Or actually a little bit before that. I was at home with my then wife at the time, and this guy that used to cut my hair since I was a young kid, his name is Phil, and he calls me kind of in a panic, and he's like, "Hey man, we had somebody pass away in our life. Can you come over here to the funeral and play something? Because the guy who was supposed to come do it, he's not answering." And whoever that guy is, I don't know who you are, but you need to clean your life up, sir. That was terrible. Somebody's having a funeral and you tell them you're going to show up and you don't show up. But anyways, God bless him. So I get my guitar and I go over there and I play, I Can Only Imagine, which is an Amazing Grace. At the time, I'm there. I don't know any of these folks really, and I remember I didn't bring my guitar strap, and so I had to kneel down on the floor on the grass, and I'm just singing, and everybody's singing along, and I'm really shocked at at everybody singing along with me. But anyway, I think that it's pretty crazy because now that was a funeral of theirs, of Sonia's, and now I actually live with her, and we're great friends, and she kind of stepped in my life at that time, and when I was going through all that, and she gave me she kind of mothered me and kind of nursed me back to health. And I still stay with her to this day, and we have a great, great friendship. And but I got to throw her daughter under the bus. This is my good friend, Bella. I love you if you see this. She got the I knows. The first and last thing out of her mouth in the day, or I know. Her mom will go to wake her up and knock on her door in the morning, and she'll shout through the door and say, "I know." And then she's about to tell her to go to bed at night, and then she'll be like, "Hey, I know it's time to go to bed." So, but anyway, that's just joking. I hope you don't get upset that I tell that little story, but I know somebody who has the I knows, and I also wanted to mention too that Sonia has definitely been there while all this sort of drastic stuff was taking place in my life. She's been a great friend, also encouraging me to go back to church, and she was really the one that got me to start playing music back. Pick your guitar up and go and try and get yourself a gig or something like that. So she's been a friend that's really been promoting me and keeping my spirits high when they were really low. So big shout out to Sonia for sure.
Man, shout out to her for real.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Go ahead, give her, little applause. You feel me?
Yes, absolutely. Definitely held me down when I through a really hard time. So I definitely have a lot of respect for her.
So, what advice would you give those struggling with their faith and struggling to stay on the right pathway?
Yeah, I think that's really huge because what we talked about is all the things that I've gone through up to this point. I think that I don't believe that they're just things that I've gone through. I know a lot of folks who've struggled with probably everything that I mentioned. Possibly getting involved with the law, divorce, maybe going out and drinking too much with the fellas, leaving God by the wayside, and all those kind of things. What I would definitely say, and I've seen this as I've gotten older, I used to hear this when I was younger, is birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
I used to get tired of hearing that. My dad used to say that so much. You are who you hang with.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Now we see that so much in the in all the podcasts and everything like that. Now we have access to billionaires.
Yeah.
These really high functioning individuals. And I think they're all saying that. I think the guy, I think he's one of them named Kevin O'Leary. He's on the news from the Shark Tank.
Okay.
He talks about that. He's a businessman. Mark Cuban will even say that, a businessman. And I think Tony Robbins is another billionaire guy. These highly functioning businessmen, they all say that, And so that's what I would tell somebody is, who's kind of found their way off the path. One of the main things that you have to do is if the people that are around you, that you're hanging with or giving your time to, are not healthy and they're doing the exact same things you're trying to get away from, unfortunately, there's no way around it. Whether it be block numbers or, just minimize contact. Maybe you don't have to go about it in a rude way, but you definitely gotta pick your circle. Or in my case, I just didn't have a circle. I had, after everything went the way it went with my ex-wife and how my life went after that, I had like Sonia and my dad. I literally, you really have to get yourself into a quiet place and get back in the church, get back in the gym, knock off the drinking. Yeah. If you're doing that, if that's your thing. And I would say that it's not super complicated. It's as simple as cut out who you're hanging out with, right? Get to church, get involved in church, and go to the gym. And pray to God, and this is something that's been helping me lately, is I've been praying to God like he's in the room. So many, and this is just happening this year as I'm 43. I found myself my whole life praying to God like he was a trillion light years away, and he was almost like a figment of my imagination. But just recently, I don't know, man, I had sort of a breakthrough as I was praying, and it kind of was like, so if you do believe in this being that created you, then he's here. Yeah. And he hears you, right?
Yeah.
He's not a million miles away.
Mm-hmm.
He's in your room.
Mm-hmm.
The being that created your brain, that's holding this earth together, that told the oceans, come this far and no further you could go. This is where you stop. That controls the seasons. Do you think that creator is a trillion miles away? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think he's in your DNA. I think he's in this room with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm creative. I'm a musician, so that was kind of a creative thing. But I have found if I was talking to somebody, I would say, pray to God, get in a quiet place, and pray like he's in the room with you, like he's sitting on the edge of your bed.
Okay.
And I think if you start doing that, which I have, the voice of God has gotten a little louder. And that grain of sand is not just a grain of sand anymore. It's the size of a tennis ball.
Yeah.
For me, it grows if you feed it.
Yeah.
And that's another proverb that I've heard before was, there's I think it was an old sort of Native American proverb that an old grandpa tells his grandson, that there's two wolves inside of every one of us. There's a dark one and there's a lighter one. And whichever one you feed is the one that's going to get bigger. And he's going to end up eventually killing the other one, And so, that's another great proverb that you could tell somebody is, that I would tell somebody is, whatever you're feeding internally is going to grow. And if you're feeding darkness, if you're hanging with people you shouldn't hang, you're watching a lot of porn, you're drinking, you're doing all this negative stuff, you're feeding the darker side of you, and it's going to grow.
Yeah.
Or if vice versa, you're going to church, you're involved in church services, you're hanging around people who are involved in church, you're going to the gym, you're making an effort to eat right, you're making an effort to speak better when you speak about yourself, you speak to other people, and you're feeding the lighter part of you, the part that is, I think we're all supposed to be as a, more Christ-like, right?
Amen to that.
And that's what I would say. Follow those rules. It doesn't have to be super complicated. It can be simple. Simple as going to the gym, going to church, changing who you hang with, and watching how you speak to yourself and watching how you speak to others, and being mindful and praying to God like He's sitting in your room.
There you go. It's as simple as 1 + 1 = 2.
That's it. I'm going to write all that down. This was a really, really good, informative interview for sure.
Hey, man, no problem at all. So, we see you got your guitar here.
Yes, sir.
Let's go ahead and pick that sucker up, man.
You ready?
Let's hear this song, y'all.
Let's hear this song.
About to hear greatness, y'all. About to hear greatness.
So this is the song, In the Name of the Father, coming out. I think by the time we air this podcast, I think would have already have come out.
Yes, sir.
So I'm really excited right now. I have a lot of great people working behind the scenes. The website is being built by a great friend of mine named Amanda Johnson. Cedric Dancy, who's editing and shot the video, he's grew up in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And so he's a really great DJ. His name's DJ Drop, and great producer and great video guy. So hopefully the next time that we talk and we do this song, my goal is, we say, Joe, what's the goal? My goal is to get this song on Christian radio. Okay. And to have this thing travel around the world.
Amen.
And give people a little bit of hope.
Let's get it.
I'm hoping that this song helps people,
It will for sure.
I have a little note that I wrote myself on this song that I'm going to put on the video. Right when the video starts, it's going to say, I wrote this song in the darkest of times. I hope that it will be a small light in yours. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and get into it.
Let's go.
And I've been asking myself why I shouldn't try. I've been asking myself in my dreams, am I really here for something more? Yeah. Do you even see me? In the name of the Father, and in the name of the Son, yeah. I'm calling on you 'cause I need you now, yeah. And can you save me from me again? And I've been telling myself there's no place for me here. Well, I don't think I can make it through another year. But on my way home, the sun broke free from the clouds. Well, I just sit here with my head bowed as I pray. And in the name of the Father, and in the name of the Son, yeah. I'm calling on you 'cause I need you now, yeah. Can you save me from me again when I pray? Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. All those times I couldn't see the light, when I said my prayers unto the night. Well, I don't really wanna lay down and die, and I just need you to talk to me and tell me why and why I pray in the name of the Father, and in the name of the Son, yeah. I'm calling on you 'cause I need you now, yeah. Can you save me from me when I pray? And in the name of the Father, and in the name of the Son, yeah. I'm calling on you 'cause I need you now, yeah. Can you save me from me when I pray? Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Woo, man. Look, I got all the applause. All the applause, man. Nah, that was amazing. Wow. Extraordinary. Wow. That, hey, while you was playing, I played drums at the church, so I'm just thinking.
Do you really?
Yeah, I'm thinking, how I'm just freestyling with it and going crazy with it. Yeah. Yeah, that is amazing.
I need a drummer, sir.
Stop the cap. Come on now.
I'm telling you, we the drums that were played on this song, man, I wanted a church drummer.
Sheesh.
I'm telling you, bro, I wanted a church drummer.
Hey, man, let's connect.
So for sure, I definitely have in the works. Another thing that I have a goal is I'm trying to get this out into. I think that we think that a record label is the answer. Excuse me, as an independent artist.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it is, but I'm trying to make a full album. During this period of my life when I was sort of never thinking I was going to recover, I ended up writing a lot of music.
Okay,
and if I could, I'll play you one small one really quickly.
Yeah,
if that's all right. Do we have time?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, come on.
Okay, so I wrote this song really very quickly. I would like it to be a hug goodbye after the last song on the album. I give you a hug and I tell you, stop, being so hard on yourself. It's very simple. And so I was making a lot of excuses why I couldn't get into church during that tough part of my life, why I wouldn't go because maybe I had drank the night before or I had, done whatever I did and I was ashamed of myself. I remember waking up one morning thinking the people that Jesus had hung around, like Zacchaeus, the crooked tax collector, or these other great champions during those times, they weren't perfect whenever he ran into them. Yeah, there was a lot of like I think the woman that was I guess a lady of the night. They weren't perfect whenever they ran into Jesus, and so this song came to me, and it was basically telling me like the whole concept of this idea of this creator that you believe in, right? It's not terribly complicated. And so this is the hug goodbye. I hope this is the last song on the album where I tell you or whoever it is to, it's very simple. And come here, give me a hug, right? All right, here we go. You don't always have to know where you're going. You don't always have to know where you've been. You just gotta wake up and keep on moving. Wake up and ask forgiveness for your sins. I heard about a place that they call heaven, and how I'd like to go there someday with you. And I heard about a man that they call Jesus, and how he lived and died for me and you. So you don't always have to know where you're going. You don't always have to know where you've been. You just gotta wake up and keep on moving. Wake up and ask forgiveness for your sins. So I heard about a place that they call heaven, and how I'd like to go there someday with you.
Man, that is good, man. That is amazing. That is amazing. That is amazing for real.
That's a pretty little thing.
Hey, man, you got yourself a fan over here, man, for sure.
I appreciate it, sir.
Hey,
Thank
wow.
you so much.
That is amazing, man.
I appreciate it. Thank
you. Really
you.
doing God's work, man. And I just really appreciate you for really coming on to the show, sharing your testimony. I really do pray it helps others and help other people just tap in, into the inner self and feeding that lighter wolf, and feeding the good side and, really just praising God, and just having all the pride and faith in God, instead of just hiding or, being afraid to, mess up, because, when we do mess up, we feel as if we can't come back or we can't, move forward, from that mistake, but you really can. And I'm really glad to see that you are going on the right pathway. And you are doing greater things, man. And I just really just pray that the blood of Jesus could just continue to overwhelm you, that every blessing that God has put in your life shall continue to move higher and higher. You should continue to use, what he's doing for you for his purpose and for his will, So, man, shout out to you for real, man. Shout out, Joe, for real. You're doing it, man. And
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
And I thank God that God is using you for real, man. So, hey, that concludes the episode of the Dannyola Show with the one and only music / artist / singer / songwriter / Mr. Joe Dominguez, and we are